Y'all get ready?
Yes, you get ready.
If you want the latest news in the streets, join us and tune in for the tea. Breaking news with integrity. So tell your friends and your family. It's the Lovelyti TV show, bringing you good tea and good vibes. It's the Lovelyti TV show. Be sure to share, like, and subscribe.
Hey tea sippers, I hope you guys are doing good today. Make sure you guys have your teacups ready because this tea is what? Piping hot. So if you guys do not know, we're going to go back in time today. Before Destiny's Child ever became Destiny's Child, before Matthew Knowles ever became a household name, and before Beyonce was the Beyonce, there was a black woman named Andretta Tillman who built this whole thing from the ground up, and somehow her name barely gets mentioned. So we're going to go ahead and break everything down today. So before there were any Grammy Awards and sold out tours and platinum records, there was a little group of girls in Houston, Texas in the early 90s, and they were called Girls Tyme. And we're talking about young children. We had Beyonce Knowles, Kelly Rowland, Latavia Robeson, Latoya Luckett, Tamar Davis, and two sisters named Nikki and Nina Taylor. And they've basically been scrubbed from the mainstream narrative entirely. The person who put this whole group together was not Matthew Knowles. It was not some corporate label executive. It was a black woman named Andretta Tillman. Many people called her Miss Ann. And Miss Ann was a Houston, Texas native. She poured everything into helping them get to where they needed to go. So one thing I need y'all to understand about Miss Ann and what she actually did, because this tends to get buried in history. But there's a man named Brian K. Moore who later wrote the book called The Making of a Child of Destiny, the Andretta Tillman story. He confirmed on record that Miss Ann secured both the Elektra record deal and the Columbia/Sony record deal for the group. She was the one in the rooms with the label executives. She was the one organizing rehearsals, coordinating appearances, and pushing demo tapes and doing all the unglamorous foundational work that nobody gives her credit for. She is also the one who landed Girls Tyme on Star Search in 1993. Now, they did end up losing to a group called the Skeleton Crew, but that Star Search appearance put the girls on a national stage, and Miss Ann is the one who made that happen. So now here comes Mr. Matthew Knowles. At the time, he was a Xerox salesman. He was not into music. He was not an industry insider. He was a father who saw what was happening with these girls and he wanted in. According to Brian K. Moore, who was there, Matthew did not walk up and ask Miss Ann to, let's work together, let's make a respectful business partnership. He basically gave Miss Ann an ultimatum. Brian Moore said in his book, and I quote, Matthew Knowles did work his way into the management team by playing the card of removing Beyonce. That was a direct quote from the man who was standing there watching it all happen back in the day. Matthew told Miss Ann that if she did not make him a co-manager, he would pull Beyonce from the group, and that was his leverage. That was his opening move. So what was Miss Ann supposed to do with that? Because Beyonce was, a budding star of the group. When they sang, all eyes were on Beyonce. She was the most prominent member. She had the most prominent voice in the group as well. So without her, the group changes completely. So Miss Ann accepted Matthew Knowles into the management structure. And from that point, the power dynamic shifted in a way that was never going to go back to what it was before. And on top of this, Miss Ann was also battling lupus. She was fighting a serious debilitating autoimmune disease while also managing these girls and now navigating a co-management situation with someone that came in by playing the most powerful card on the table. Unfortunately for Miss Ann, she ended up passing away in 1997 from lupus before she was able to see all of her hard work and her dreams and goals that she placed on those young girls come to fruition. The same year Destiny's Child officially signed to Columbia Records, the same year that the machine really started ramping up is when she passed, and the story that gets told about how the group came to be started getting rewritten. Once Matthew Knowles had full control, the new narrative began being spun. And the new narrative was that he left his Xerox job, he built Music World Entertainment, he secured the deal, and he created Destiny's Child. And yes, Matthew Knowles did put in real work. Nobody's going to take that away from him. But there was a black woman who built the foundation way before he ever arrived. Her name has mostly been absent from the mainstream Destiny's Child legacy for over 30 years.
Question marks, because according to Matthew Knowles, he ran the ship he was the reason why Destiny's Child was or is the way they are today. However, you've got a different opinion of this. Can you kind of say your side of the story?
Well, I think the easiest way without, trying to bash or anything like that, Matthew and I and the other members, the producers and things like that, we were a part of a team that Andretta put together. And she was the mastermind behind everything that happened. She was the mastermind by getting the contract, the Sony deal, and all the other deals. Matthew took over after she passed in 1997. And that's where really I think we differentiate, because he tells the story as if he started back in 1889 and 92 after the Star Search and things. But it was really Andretta's guiding and her vision that created Destiny's Child.
The only remembrance and mention of Miss Ann was on the Destiny's Child Writing on the Wall album. At the end of the song, Sweet 16, you can hear all the girls say, "This is for you, Miss Ann, who's now with our Heavenly Father." Then they proceed to dedicate the outro song, which was Amazing Grace, to Miss Ann.
This is for you, Miss Ann, who's now with our Heavenly Father who made the real commandments.
So once again, y'all, we are seeing a pattern that we constantly see in this industry. Black women will lay the foundation, then someone else builds the house and takes credit for everything, including the ground that it's sitting on. In more recent times, the same thing happened to DJ Diamond Cuts. Many people did not know before her Breakfast Club interview that she's the one who discovered and put time into building Lil Uzi Vert. And once he blew up, she was basically written out of the narrative. So the same thing is what happened to Miss Ann back in the 90s.
You discovered Lil Uzi? Now that I didn't know.
You didn't know that?
Nah.
Yeah.
How did that happen? Because I always wondered about Lil Uzi because he don't look or sound like nothing coming out of Philadelphia.
Well,
why didn't you sign him to yourself?
y'all want to talk?
Yes.
Yes.
We want to hear what happened.
So now let's fast forward. So now the group is signed, the machine is moving, and the hits start coming in. No, 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 back in 1997. Bills, Bills, Bills in 1999. The Writings on the Wall album ended up going 8 times platinum in the United States alone. And from the outside, it looked like the 4 girls were on top of the world together. But behind the scenes, something was definitely fracturing. Beyonce was singing lead on everything. She was front and center in every interview. She was being positioned in a way that made it very clear who this group was being built around. Latavia Robeson and LaToya Luckett, along with their families, started asking questions. Latavia later said in interviews that things felt very unfair. She said Matthew used to say things like, "Y'all should be glad I'm giving you money." She also said that Beyonce and Kelly had cars while she was not getting the same treatment. Their paychecks were different, the treatment was different, and she said the issue was always management, never with the girls. So Latavia and LaToya did what any rational person would do in that situation. In late 1999, they had their lawyers send Matthew Knowles a letter expressing their grievances and asking for an addition of a second manager to work alongside him. Not to replace him, they wanted to add a third-party voice that could represent everyone's interests fairly. Because when you're the manager and also one of the members' fathers, being neutral in these type of situations is not always guaranteed. So it wasn't crazy for them to start feeling away. This wasn't them being difficult. It wasn't them trying to be divisive. It was them trying to protect themselves as young women in an industry that's not going to protect them. Latavia said it clearly. "We were happy for Matthew to stay on as manager, but we wanted another manager to work with him. That's it." Now think about this. A few years before that, Miss Ann was the one running the group, and Matthew basically bogarted his way into being her co-manager. And then once she passed away, it was obviously unfair for the girls. So now they're asking Matthew, well, hey, you were a co-manager with Miss Ann. Can we bring another manager into the group so that way it's more fair for us as well? And Matthew says no. So it's very interesting how the same thing he demanded for Miss Ann, once he got into that position of manager, he refused to share that position. So long story short, Matthew did not take kindly to being challenged. Before Latavia and LaToya even had a chance to sit down and talk to Beyonce and Kelly directly, which is one thing that Latavia has always stated that she regretted not doing first, they were replaced. The video for Say My Name dropped in February of 2000. and Latavia and Latoya were not in it. Michelle Williams and Farrah Franklin were. And how did Latavia and Latoya find out that they were no longer in the group that they helped build? They found out like we all found out in the early 2000s. Child, I was at home minding my business, honey. Say My Name comes on. It's a premiere on MTV. And we're watching the video and it's like, hold on. Who? Who are these other people? Where are the other girls that were on the album cover? So we were confused as teenagers, not knowing what happened. So to find out that that's how they found out as well is just heartbreaking. Latavia said in her memoir, we saw the Say My Name video on TV. That's how I found out I was no longer in the group. I never left Destiny's Child. Who would leave Destiny's Child? That's crazy. I was dismissed from the group. So now mind you, these two girls grew up with Beyonce and Kelly. Latoya literally met Beyonce in grade school because Beyonce was sitting in her assigned seat. They built this together from childhood. They prayed together for the group to succeed. They went on tour together. They worked 22 hours a day. Through the summer, they missed prom, they missed dances. They put everything into building Destiny's Child. They won Grammys together just for two of them to find out in front of the world by turning on the television that two strangers were standing in their spot. No phone call, no meeting, no conversation. Just the Say My Name video on MTV with a brand new lineup and the chapter basically telling them goodbye, your services are no longer needed.
What was that like though when you heard that they'd shot a video for a song you sang without you?
It's like, oh my God, you boys. I was like, hold on. I was like, it's not true. Then we got another call and we heard it again. Then the next thing I'm looking at BET. The premiere of Destiny's Child's new video, Say My Name.
They were very, very aware of everything before it was done. There have been comments on the radio that I can't get into it legally, but there have been comments on the radio stating that they knew exactly what was going on. I called them personally and said that I would be a bigger woman and call them and confront them.
Latoya talked about this moment on the Terrell Show, and she handled it with humor because that's who she is. But you could still, tell that there's some pain underneath there. She even started singing Drew Hill's In My Bed about somebody sleeping in her bed and taking her place.
When I was sitting at home, listening to it on the radio,
Yes.
because around that time things changed. But I do remember saying, you know what, regardless of what's going on, that's a pretty good dang on song.
Absolutely.
That's a good song. I was probably more mad that I couldn't be a part of that one. That was a good song. As I said at the house, I said, Self, this is a good song.
How could it not hurt? I mean, you were a part of the album, and then the story goes, you wake up one day.
Somebody's sleeping in my bed.
I'm gonna have to go.
Baby, yeah. Somebody's taking my place, yeah. Hey man, look. But that's my dog.
Of course.
Shout out to Michelle Williams. Hey, boo.
She gave Michelle Williams a shout out. She also joked that it hurt to see the new lineup in Dior because when they were coming up as Destiny's Child, they really didn't have no money like that. On the T.I. and Tiny show, she talked about how much it did hurt her. And what she said on the show was that basically they were friends. She went to school with all of these girls. And to not have her friends anymore really broke her heart.
Management made a decision. There was nothing that Latavia and I could do about it. Did it hurt? Absolutely, because we were friends. I went to school with these girls.
And for Latavia, she's been even more open about the aftermath. She has spoken publicly about falling into depression, turning to alcohol, and going through a genuinely dark period after being removed from the girls group. She said, my issue was always with management. It was never with the girls.
You were going through a really rough time. You didn't know what to pray for. What gave you comfort?
Alcohol, drugs. Being in my own space, exclude myself from society, self-sabotage. That's where I was. People wonder, well, what happened to you for 20 years? I was underneath my own rock.
And that's actually a very important distinction that a lot of people miss when they tell their story. They ended up suing Matthew Knowles for breach of contract and mismanagement. The case was settled out of court. Latavia confirmed that they still receive royalties because they had writing credits on both albums, and they won 2 Grammy Awards for Say My Name, despite no longer being in the group. But the emotional damage was done. And then Farrah Franklin came in as one of the 2 replacements and was gone in less than 5 months. She claims it was a year, but most people say by the time they came out publicly, it was 5 months before she was replaced.
No, it wasn't just one thing, really. It was like, I was really in the group longer than 5 months. They said I was in the group for 5 months, but really I was in the group for about a year and some change. And there was I've just always been a leader and an individual. I've never been a follower. I've never been a happy to be here type of person because I work so hard for where I am.
Yeah, don't cry.
No, I'm not.
Okay.
And it was just a lot. Like, I wanted to be happy, and this is like everything I've ever dreamed for, and I wasn't happy.
Yes. Why? Were the sisters ganging up on you? Beyonce
It was a little, because you have someone's whole family.
Sisters.
You have the whole family on road with you. It's kind of hard because you have a mother who is a hairstylist and also the clothing stylist.
Right.
You have a father who's the manager. You have her other cousin. I'm saying my cousin now. You have her other cousin who was our attorney. You also have her other cousin who was our road manager, and you have her other cousin who was our road manager's assistant, and you have her sister Solange who was a background dancer.
Right.
Therefore, we have 4 days off a month, the whole month, and not even in a consistent role.
It's not a way you would want somebody treating your 18-year-old daughter fresh out of the hospital from stomach flu and dehydration. And it just started getting more where I guess I wasn't saying anything, like I said. I was just taking it.
Farrah said that when she left, she felt like she was losing her identity and was not being treated the way you would personally want somebody treating your daughter. Same pattern, different person, new face, same environment.
Okay. That's the last flight out of here?
Yes, sir. You might have to go straight to the airport.
Okay. I don't have no luggage.
I'm rolling.
But it's better for you to go home than not have luggage.
No, it's not.
It's not?
Because where y'all coming out there?
Well, somebody can send your luggage.
But then I'm going to have to wait for 4 days before I get all my stuff.
Well, it's either that or you're going to probably miss your flight.
The Survivor era was a big era for Destiny's Child, and it arrived with a very specific narrative attached to it. All of a sudden, the messaging was about overcoming adversity and rising above people who could not keep up. And, basically saying that Michelle, Kelly, and Beyonce survived all of the drama, all of the bad seeds of Destiny's Child.
The bad seeds are now out of Destiny's Child. We had changes in the group, and we finally found the recipe that is perfect.
Beyonce even gave an interview and said that this is the first time that everyone in the group could sing lead.
It happened for a good reason because the group has improved so much. We get along a lot better. The songs are a lot better. Our magic on stage is a lot better. We sing a lot better. Everybody gets to sing lead now because everybody can sing lead. So it's just really a blessing. More importantly, we're happy.
It was a very shady way of basically trying to frame it like the previous members were vocally limited. And as we all know, that's not true. Latavia sang leads on multiple album tracks. LaToya has spoken out about being told by Matthew that certain vocal opportunities were not going to happen for her inside that group. I mean, we have videos of them singing a cappella. All of these young girls had beautiful voices.
Just go back to it one more time for me to get some more footage. Just get the strongest harmony parts. I just need a few more minutes of footage, that's all.
The children of the world reach out to you.
By Monday, maybe one day, and that day, by Monday.
RL from the group Next came forward and even stated that Kelly confided in him and that she wanted to shine more. And when he brought this to Matthew Knowles, Matthew says he did not think it was a good idea.
The funny thing is, we did this and it was no money. It was supposed to be a favor returned. And I made the biggest mistake of my career. by being loyal. Well, the second biggest. So what happened was we were with Violator at the time, and the deal was we do this record with y'all. Y'all have to do a record with us on our project. And at that time, we were the bigger group. They had just went on before us on the tour with Boys and Men. Me and Kelly were really close. If you look on the second album, she's like, calls me her big brother. It was really cool. And she had told me that she really wanted to shine. And she didn't feel like she had the platform to do that. And I was like, okay, well, when we do this other record, I'm going to tell Mona that I want you to lead it with me. I'm not thinking about who's bigger, who's going to be the bigger, or none of that mattered. That was just loyalty. So we tell Matthew. Matthew's like, you sure? I don't think that's a good idea. And I'm like, wait a minute. Don't you manage all of them? How you going to say that's not a good idea? Next thing you know, Mona used the favor on a Missy record instead, even though it was my favor. And we never got the record done.
This was Kelly asking for more space in her own group, but being told no by the manager. Make that make sense. Also, let's not forget, Tank also talked about this. He talked about how everybody was always praising Beyonce for her vocals, but once he really started working with Kelly, he realized how powerful Kelly's voice was.
Kelly Rowland is by far one of the most talented females I've ever worked with in my life.
Wow.
By far.
Wow.
And I'm sitting in the studio like, y'all hear these harmonies? Do you hear her? Do you hear the text? Do you hear her change in dynamic? Are y'all hearing this?
Right.
I never knew.
Wow.
Because I gave all the credit to Beyonce. That's how the business of Destiny's Child was set up.
Right.
Now let's talk about what happened after the whole Destiny's Child era, because this part of the story never gets enough attention. After the group officially disbanded, Beyonce then went on to be a global superstar. Matthew tried to replicate this formula by signing other girl groups. One of the girl groups that he signed was called Rich Girl, and then soon after that, Rich Girl was dissolved. He also signed a trio called Blush Music, which composed of 3 women, Sunny, Tali, and Bunny Ray. He had them in artist development for 17 months. He reportedly required the group to lose weight collectively before he felt they were ready to be presented to the mainstream. Their project never broke through, and by 2021, Matthew Knowles was publicly talking about retiring from the music industry. In 2022, he sold Music World Entertainment entirely to APX Capital Group. The company that he had founded to build and manage artists was completely gone. So what does that tell you? That tells you that what made Destiny's Child was never just Matthew Knowles' management formula. It was a very specific combination of things. It was Beyonce's undeniable talent. It was the chemistry of the girls who grew up together and genuinely loved each other before the industry got involved. It was also the timing of the late 90s R&B movement. And most importantly, it was a foundation that was laid by a Black woman named Andretta Tillman, who believed in these girls before anyone else or any power or platform did. Matthew Knowles could not replicate it because you cannot manufacture what Miss Ann Tillman built. You can only manage what's already there. And when the original 4 girls who grew up together were no longer there, something essential about the foundation was gone too. The music industry has a very long, very consistent history of erasing Black women who do the building behind the scenes. Miss Ann was organizing rehearsals, negotiating record deals while fighting lupus. She was doing the work that nobody documented, making calls that nobody gave her credit for, laying the groundwork for something that would become one of the most successful girl groups in music history. Then she passed away and the story moved on without her name in it. There's a book, there's a documentary. Her former co-manager has spoken on record about what really happened. The original Girls Tyme members have also confirmed her role as well. But when people talk about Destiny's Child, you only hear about Matthew Knowles. You only hear about the Knowles family brand, and you most importantly only hear about Beyonce. But here are some pictures of inserts of the girls thanking Miss Ann. And I'm going to read to you guys some of those inserts now. So this was from Beyonce to Miss Ann. She says, "Thank you, Miss Ann. You are my guardian angel, and I dedicate this album to you. Rest in peace, Beyonce." On this particular picture, it says, "Miss Ann, we love you always. We dedicate our performance while on Star Search to you. Thank you for getting us there." In Kelly's album, she wrote, "To the late, great Andretta Tillman, you taught me a lot. Your spirit lives on. I love you, Kelly Rowland." So once again, proving that Miss Ann was the one who got them booked on Star Search and not Matthew Knowles. Latoya says this, World Music Management, for teaching me so much. Miss Ann, love and miss you. On this particular picture, when they're like in junior high here, it says to Miss Ann, Beyonce, Latavia, Latoya, and Kelly. And in this part, it says, extra special thanks to the lady I dedicate this album to, Miss Andretta Tillman, I love you, Latavia Robeson. So as you can see, the girls had a lot of love for Miss Ann, and they always made sure to say her name and thank her in their early years. And she deserves that credit because she's the one who laid the foundation and the groundwork for Girls Tyme. Now, what's very interesting about what's going on now with Matthew Knowles is this. About 3-4 months ago, Matthew Knowles went viral for stating the following. Basically, he's upset and he's now crying and saying that he does not get the credit that he deserves as a black manager. And this has been bothering him as of late. So this sparked a lot of good debate online. So in that interview, he said Beyonce was the #1 female artist of the decade from 2000 to 2009. Don't take my word for it. Go research it. Guess who was the #1 female group in the world? Destiny's Child. But the other part of that is if I was a white manager, I'd be considered the #1 manager ever. So I never get that respect that's deserved.
So for the artist of the decade, people not paying attention, Beyonce was the #1 female artist of the decade from 2000 to 2009. Don't take my word, just go research it. Guess who was the #1 female group in the world?
Destiny's Child.
Destiny's Child.
The men you own.
But the other part of that, if I was a white manager,
you'd be
I would be
considered
considered the #1 manager ever.
yes of all time.
So I never get that respect that's deserved.
Wow.
All right, so you guys just heard that clip. And, you know, Matthew feels like he should be on the same level and be mentioned like Usher's mother, Britney Spears' father, Brandy Norwood's mother, who was also Brandy's manager. But I think the problem is the reason why Matthew Knowles is not in the conversation for management is that, one, he has not been able to replicate it, and he's had a lot of chances. Brandy's mother only managed Brandy. Britney's father only managed Britney. Matthew Knowles has managed a slew of people, and outside of Beyonce, he has not really been successful. I think the problem why Matthew Knowles does not get the credit that he feels that he deserves, one, I feel like it's karma, because he tried to basically erase what Miss Ann did and the work that she put in and the foundation that she laid, and he tried to take credit for it. But another reason why he does not get the credit is because his personal life overshadowed his achievements. This is the same man that had not one but 2 side babies on Tina Knowles, Beyonce's mother, while they were still married. And he had 2 kids by 2 different women.
When you told Matthew Knowles that you were pregnant with his child, how did he react?
Very much. Well, you can't get pregnant by me. You know, it can't be my child. You can't deny it once DNA test comes out 99.9% that you are the father.
All single ladies, all single ladies, all single.
Adorable 4-year-old boy is Beyonce's half-brother, but they've never even met. Now the mother of Nixon Alexander Knowles is speaking out exclusively to Inside Edition.
I'm going to stand up, and I'm going to fight tomorrow, and I'm going to fight the next day, and I'm going to keep fighting. I'm going to keep fighting, because that's the only way to give him his identity.
Mom Alexandra Wright claims she'll have to file for public assistance because she says Beyonce's father, Matthew Knowles, hasn't paid $32,000 in court-ordered child support.
So his personal life was very messy. And then on top of that, let's not forget, back in 2011, legal documents were filed by Beyonce. Beyonce had hired a forensic accountant to audit her finances after Live Nation, who promoted her tour, accused her father of stealing or taking money that he was not entitled to. So basically, the legal papers indicated that an audit was conducted in October of 2010, and they found that Matthew Knowles had allegedly taken money from her, resulting in his termination in 2011. While some reports mention a large, vague discrepancies, others were precise to say that the amount stolen from Beyonce was $10 million. He was accused of basically diverting her funds into his account. And that is why Beyonce fired him, shortly after her I Am Sasha Fierce album dropped. Now, Matthew Knowles has always denied these allegations, claiming that he did not steal from her and that Live Nation made false claims to secure the rights to manage her. But Beyonce is his daughter, and she's never come out to defend him or say that these are lies against my father. She basically fired him and moved on. So I don't really think that he was such a great manager as he perceives himself to be. Let's also not forget that Kelly Rowland also fired him as well. There's also things that he did to sacrifice and help the girls get to where they're at. But like I said, his personal life was very messy. And the fact that he couldn't be trusted financially, that might be why, you know, he's not spoken on the same level as Usher's mom and, you know, Brandy's mom and things like that. And let's not forget, the former members all have stories about their experiences with Matthew Knowles. And most of those stories are not positive stories. You know, Beyonce praises him for being a good father, but you don't hear her talking about how her father was a great manager, if you read in between the lines. If you're a good person, you're good at what you do, and you treated people with kindness and respect, then it would just speak for itself. He wouldn't have to go on platforms and, you know, demand that, you know, he be given credit, especially being that his daughter is a global superstar. That alone, he should just be happy for her success. But, you know, I'm getting narcissistic vibes where he also wants, you know, that adjacency to fame. He wants that adjacency to, you know, to how big she's become. He wants to take credit for that. And that's not fair because, again, he was there in the beginning, but he didn't build the foundation. And recently, 2 months ago, a rapper named Corey Moe came out and he said that he was around back in 1996. He was around Destiny's Child, and he spoke very highly of Miss Ann and what she did for the group.
Girls Tyme back then. I think it was just Destiny without the child. So yeah, it was in between that. Miss Ann ended up passing away because of lupus. The little family that she created, like we all kind of just went our separate ways. Then Matthew took over managing Destiny's Child. And we really didn't even get to see them no more. They was out of here.
So you guys just heard what Corey Moe had to say. And it makes me feel good that people are mentioning Andretta Tillman more and people are giving her her flowers because she's been totally just replaced. And like they always say, legacy is not about who stands on the stage at the end. It's about who built the stage in the first place. And Andretta Tillman built that stage. So just like the song Say My Name, we should all say her name as well when speaking about Girls Tyme, Destiny's Child, and Beyonce, because she definitely laid the foundation for these ladies. So with that being said, tea sippers, I leave the conversation up to you guys. Let me know what you guys think about this entire situation. Did you know anything about Andretta Tillman before this video? How do you feel about how Matthew Knowles inserted himself into the management position in the ultimatum that he gave Miss Ann, only to then later on deny Latavia and Latoya their chance to have a co-manager on board? And also, how do you feel about them being removed from the group only to see themselves in the Say My Name music video? And do you think the fact that Matthew Knowles has not been able to replicate the success of Destiny's Child proves that it was never really about his formula in the first place? I look forward to reading y'all's comments down below. Please hit this video with a like. Feel free to share this video, and I'll talk to you guys later. Deuces.
If you want the latest news in the streets, join us and tune in for the tea. Breaking news with integrity. So tell your friends and your family. It's the Lovelyti TV show, bringing you good tea and good vibes. It's the Lovelyti TV show. Be sure to share, like, and subscribe.